The alien forest was dense and foreboding. Dark trees towered above, their leaves rustling with the quiet whisper of the wind. Thick vines twisted around the trunks, while the underbrush was a maze of spiky plants and thorn-covered branches. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of earth, decay, and something else, something dangerous. The huntress moved through the forest with the grace of a shadow, her eyes sharp, her senses alert. She had been tracking her prey for days, determined to rid her village of the beast that had caused so much destruction. Her name was Zara, a skilled warrior from a clan of hunters known for their prowess in the wild. Her tribe depended on her, and failure was not an option. Zara's target was no ordinary creature. It was large, venomous, and elusive. The creature had been terrorizing the village for weeks, attacking livestock and damaging the surrounding areas. The villagers had tried to hunt it, but the creature was too cunning, always managing to slip away into the depths of the forest. Zara had volunteered to hunt it herself, confident in her abilities. She had survived countless battles in the past and had never failed in her missions. But this hunt was different. She could feel it in the air. This creature was unlike any she had faced before. She moved carefully through the forest, her eyes scanning the ground for any signs of the creature's presence. Her hand rested lightly on the hilt of her sword, her fingers brushing the cool metal of the blade. It was her most trusted weapon, forged from a rare metal found only in the deepest parts of the planet's mountains. The blade had never failed her, and she trusted it more than anything else in the world. As she walked, the silence of the forest was broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird. Zara paused, her senses tingling. Something was nearby. She knelt down, carefully inspecting the ground. A faint trail of blood led deeper into the forest. The creature had been injured. This was her chance. Zara rose to her feet, determination in her eyes. She followed the trail, her footsteps light and quick. She could feel the tension building, the thrill of the hunt surging through her veins. The creature was close. After a few more moments of tracking, she saw it. The creature was massive, its body covered in thick, scaly armor that shimmered in the dappled sunlight. It stood in a clearing, its long tail swishing back and forth, its glowing eyes scanning the area for danger. It was a terrifying sight, and Zara felt a rush of excitement and fear in equal measure. She had found it at last. Without hesitation, she lunged forward, her sword raised high. The creature reacted quickly, its tail whipping around to strike at her. Zara barely managed to dodge, the tip of the tail grazing her arm. She winced at the sharp pain but didn't let it slow her down. She was ready. The battle between the two was fierce and fast. Zara's agility allowed her to dodge the creature's attacks, but its venomous tail was a constant threat. The creature's movements were erratic but powerful, and it seemed to anticipate every one of Zara's moves. Zara fought with everything she had, her body moving fluidly as she struck at the creature's vulnerable spots. But the creature was too quick, always slipping just out of her reach. The battle raged on for what felt like hours, both Zara and the creature exhausted but unwilling to relent. Zara could feel herself starting to falter, her strength beginning to wane. She had to finish this soon, or she would not survive. In a desperate move, Zara made one final strike. She aimed for the creature's throat, hoping to end the battle once and for all. But just as her blade was about to make contact, the creature swung its tail around with lightning speed, catching her off guard. The tail struck her square in the chest, and Zara was thrown back, her breath knocked out of her. She hit the ground hard, pain shooting through her body. She tried to rise, but the world around her began to spin. Her vision blurred, and she felt the telltale signs of the poison coursing through her veins. Her body felt heavy, her limbs sluggish. She struggled to stay conscious, but it was no use. The poison was spreading too quickly. Zara could feel her strength fading, her body growing colder by the second. The last thing she remembered was the creature retreating into the shadows, leaving her lying in the dirt, helpless and dying. The forest seemed to close in around her, the sounds of the world fading into a muffled blur. Zara's heart pounded in her chest, each beat growing slower and weaker. Her mind was foggy, her thoughts scattered. She knew she was dying. She had felt the poison take hold, and now there was nothing left to do but wait for it to claim her. Her thoughts turned to her village, to her people. She had failed them. The creature would continue its rampage, and she would not be there to stop it. She had given everything to this hunt, and now it was all for nothing. Zara's chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, and she closed her eyes, preparing for the darkness to take her. But then a sound, something unexpected, broke through the haze of her mind. Footsteps, a voice. She tried to focus, but the poison made it difficult to think. Through the blur, she saw a figure approaching. A human. A strange figure in a dark cloak, carrying something in his hands. Zara's first instinct was to fight, to resist. But the poison sapped her strength, and all she could do was watch as the human knelt beside her. His face was obscured by the shadows, but she could feel his presence. His hands were gentle as they touched her, carefully inspecting the wound on her chest. Zara tried to speak, to warn him, but her voice wouldn't come. She could barely breathe, let alone speak. The human didn't seem afraid, though. He worked quickly, his hands moving with practiced ease. Zara felt a strange sensation as he applied something to the wound, something cool, soothing. She didn't know what it was, but it was the first relief she had felt since the poison had taken hold. The human spoke in a language Zara didn't understand, but his voice was calm, steady. He seemed to know what he was doing. He placed his hands on her chest, pressing down gently, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Zara felt her breathing slow. She could feel the poison starting to ebb, the darkness receding from her mind. It wasn't gone, but she could hold on. As she lay there, her body still heavy and weak, Zara realized something that left her speechless. This human, this stranger, had saved her. He had done something that no one else could. He had defied the poison and brought her back from the edge of death. Zara's thoughts were a jumble of confusion, gratitude, and disbelief. She had never expected to owe her life to a human. Her people had always seen humans as weak, incapable of standing against the strength of the native species. But this human, this man, had proven them all wrong. He had acted without hesitation, without fear. And now Zara was alive because of him. This was just the beginning. Zara's journey had taken an unexpected turn, and the human's presence would change everything. But for now, Zara could only rest, allowing the human's care to heal her piece by piece. She had been given a second chance, but at what cost? Only time would tell. Zara slowly woke up, the steady rhythm of her breathing the first sign that she was still alive. She blinked, her eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through the dense trees above. Her body ached, a dull pain that reminded her of the poison that had nearly claimed her life. But the pain was bearable now, a far cry from the agony she had felt earlier. She tried to move, but her muscles were weak, uncooperative. She felt a strange weight on her chest, like a warm, steady presence. Looking down, she saw the human sitting beside her, his hands resting on his knees. He was watching her, his eyes calm, but there was something in his gaze that made Zara pause. It was a mixture of concern and curiosity, as if he was waiting for something. Zara tried to speak, but her voice was a hoarse whisper. "What? What did you do?" The human didn't immediately answer. Instead, he placed a small, damp cloth on her forehead, as though checking if she had a fever. Zara felt the coolness spread over her skin, and for the first time since the poison had taken hold, she felt a sense of relief. "You're still weak," the human said, his voice soft but firm. "You were poisoned. I had to use everything I knew to stop it. You're lucky I found you when I did." Zara blinked, still processing his words. Her thoughts were sluggish, and the memories of the fight with the creature began to resurface. She had failed. She had been defeated. But now, here she was, alive, because of this human. The human seemed to sense her confusion and frustration. He spoke again, his words clear, though Zara had no idea how he spoke her language. "I'm not from here. My ship crashed not far from this forest. I've been trying to repair it, but I heard something in the forest. I thought it was just an animal, but when I found you, I knew you needed help." Zara's mind swirled. A human, from another place. She had heard stories of humans, but none of them were like this one. None had been skilled enough to save her. Humans were supposed to be weak, not capable of surviving in the wild, let alone healing someone as strong as her. "Why help me?" Zara managed to ask, her voice still weak. She didn't understand. She had always been taught to distrust outsiders, especially humans. Yet this one had risked his life to save hers. The human looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Because you were dying. And I couldn't just let that happen." His words were simple, but there was something in his tone that made Zara feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: gratitude. It was a strange, uncomfortable feeling for her, but she didn't push it away. He stood up, stretching his arms, and for the first time Zara had a chance to truly examine him. He was tall, his build lean but strong. His clothes were simple, covered in dirt and patches, but he moved with an ease that told her he was capable. His face was unshaven, and his eyes, though human, had a certain hardness to them, as though he had seen things that had shaped him into the person he was. But despite all that, there was something kind about him, something that made Zara feel safe. "You need to rest," he said, glancing at her with a faint smile. "You're not in any condition to be moving around." Zara didn't argue. She knew he was right. Her body was still recovering from the poison, and even though the worst of it had passed, she felt incredibly weak. She had always prided herself on her strength, her ability to endure pain and exhaustion, but right now, she was utterly dependent on this human. For hours she lay there, watching the human work. He was busy gathering herbs and supplies from the forest, setting up a small camp nearby. He didn't ask her for anything, didn't pressure her to speak. He simply allowed her to rest, letting her recover at her own pace. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Zara allowed herself to do nothing, to just exist. She closed her eyes and let the warmth of the fire he had built comfort her. As the day passed, Zara found herself observing the human more closely. His movements were efficient, practiced. He didn't seem like a mere traveler or a wanderer. There was a quiet purpose to everything he did. She had learned enough about humans to know they were resourceful, but this one, he was different. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, even in a place as hostile as this forest. Finally, after hours of silence, the human sat down next to her again. His gaze was steady, but this time there was something else in his eyes. A question, perhaps. Or maybe it was just curiosity. Zara wasn't sure. "You're a hunter, aren't you?" he asked, his voice low. Zara nodded slowly. "I was," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "before I failed." The human didn't respond immediately. He just watched her, his expression softening. "You didn't fail," he said quietly. "You fought. That's all anyone can ask for." Zara looked at him, surprised by his words. She had expected him to say something dismissive, something to make her feel weaker. But instead he had spoken with understanding, as though he knew the weight of failure all too well. Zara shifted, her muscles still sore from the battle. "The creature," she said, her voice almost steady now. "It was too powerful. I couldn't defeat it." The human looked at her for a long moment before speaking again. "You didn't need to defeat it alone." Zara frowned, unsure of what he meant. "What do you mean?" The human smiled slightly. Maybe you don't have to fight everything by yourself. Maybe there's a different way." Zara didn't answer. The idea of relying on someone else, especially a human, felt foreign to her. She had always been taught to be self-reliant, to trust only in her own strength. But this human, he had saved her life. And in a way, that made him someone she needed to understand. Not just for the sake of her survival, but for something deeper. The days passed in a blur. Zara's body slowly healed, thanks to the human's care and the strength of her own resolve. She still struggled with the idea of depending on him, but she couldn't deny the bond that was growing between them. It was subtle, almost unspoken, but it was there. In the way he tended to her needs without asking for anything in return, and in the way she found herself looking to him for guidance when her own strength faltered. One morning, as Zara sat up and stretched, she found the human staring into the distance. His gaze was focused, as though he was deep in thought. Zara followed his line of sight and saw a ship in the distance, half hidden by the trees. "It's my ship," the human said, his voice suddenly serious. "I've been trying to repair it. But it's slow work and I don't know if I can do it alone." Zara felt a stir of curiosity. "You want my help?" The human turned to her, his eyes meeting hers. "I can't do it alone," he said simply. "I never could." Zara hesitated. The idea of helping him, of relying on him and trusting him even more was terrifying. But at the same time, something inside her stirred, something that she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, a sense of possibility. "I will help you," she said finally, her voice steady. It wasn't a promise of friendship, but it was a start. The human smiled, and for the first time, Zara allowed herself to return it.